Good afternoon, everyone. It's now exactly 1:30, and I'd like to welcome you to our seminar, which is co-hosted between the World Bank Group and the Thailand Development Research Institute, TDRI, on technology and development in East Asia, firms, jobs, and services. So this is a report that was done by the World Bank Group, and especially by our chief economist of the East Asia and Pacific of the World Bank Group, Aditya, who is here and will be presenting to us in a little bit. So if you would like to listen to the translation in Thai, for those of you who are online, you can press on the translation button on your Zoom. For those of you who are here in the room, if you would like to listen to the translation, you can scan the QR code to get to the Zoom link, and you can listen to the translation on Zoom. Let me say it in Thai ถ้าต้องการฟังแปลเป็นภาษาไทยนะคะก็สามารถที่จะสแกน Zoom ลิงก์นะคะเข้าไปใน Zoom อะค่ะแล้วก็ใช้หูฟังแปลได้นะคะจะมีการแปลผ่าน Zoom มาด้วยอะค่ะ so without any further ado I think I'd like Dr. Somkiat the president of TDRI to give some welcoming and opening remarks. Please, Dr. Somkiat.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kirida. Good afternoon. Sawadee krab. Thank you for coming to this very important seminar. TDI is proud to host this East Asia development workshop with the World Bank. So we are really happy to have our friends and colleagues from the World Bank to be at TDI to present an important report on technology and development in East Asia. I'm sure from the title they talked about firm, talked about entrepreneurship, and also talks about many things about jobs. Thailand is experiencing one of the most slowing growth in East Asia in general. If you compare to countries that are have a much lower income than Thailand, like Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam, we have a lower growth rate. At the same time, if you compare with Malaysia, we also have lower growth rate. So what's wrong with Thailand? I have a lot of expectation with the World Bank report to show us, to guide us with some light. And I have known Aditya for a long time from reading his paper. I'm really happy to have him and his colleagues with us today. So without further ado, I would like to return the floor to Dr. Kirida and conduct the session. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much, Dr. Somkiat. So before we start and before Dr. Somkiat has to leave for another meeting, could we just have a quick group photo with the speakers and the World Bank speakers as well? If the audience would just bear with us for 1 minute, we'll just do a quick group photo shoot, and we will begin with our seminar. Please.
And you must be here because there are 2 men.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Somkiat. So we will now begin with Aditya. Aditya, you will tell us all about the report and the key findings, right, before we dive into the different sections of the report. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much for inviting us. And I'm really grateful that you've all come here to listen to at least some of the findings. Otherwise, the presenters were likely to be larger than the audience. But you have dispelled at least one concern. So I'm not going to talk about the whole report or preempt the punchlines that my colleagues will share with you. What I will do is give you a quick sense of how the Thai economy has evolved, then speak a little bit about trends in technology and reform, and finally propose a framework for thinking about development. So I need some props. Actually, you know, this mic matches my tie.
Wonderful, wonderful.
First, please, thank you. So the first stylized fact that I'd like to share with you is this chart shows that developing countries in the region, how much faster they were growing than a selection of industrial countries. For example, for much of the period after 2010, China was growing as much as 8% fast, 8 percentage points. This is the marriage of the light. So I have to stay away from the light. So the illumination will have to come from here. So 8 percentage points faster than the richest countries in the world. Thailand was also growing faster, but less so, but it was catching up. And that was the good news. But now that process has actually slowed down a lot. And a country like Thailand is actually falling further behind. Fact number one, that the growth catch-up, the convergence that we were celebrating is now cause for concern. Stylized fact two looks at the last roughly 5 decades of Thailand's development and looks at the pattern of structural transformation. This very nice chart shows relative productivity, how much productivity in any sector is compared to the economy-wide average. Did I do that? Okay, I'll continue the story and you have to imagine the charts. So, yeah, here they are. So you see, this shows, for example, a sector like manufacturing has productivity above the economy-wide average. Agriculture has productivity below the economy-wide average. This line, or measured on the horizontal axis, is whether employment in a sector is shrinking or growing. Does that make sense? Now, in this first period from 1976 to 1990, these 15 years, you see agriculture had lower productivity and was shrinking. People were leaving agriculture and they were going to manufacturing and also to trade, which is basically retail and distribution. Now, the next period, this tendency continued. Manufacturing became bigger because people had moved to it. Agriculture shrank a little bit, but roughly the trend was the same. But in this most recent decade, you see something a little worrying. Less movement out of agriculture and diminishing productivity, especially in services and also in manufacturing. So manufacturing is absorbing less workers. So there's not scope for much dynamism in this. So the key problem here is that you have the movement of people out of less productive to more productive sectors has slowed down. And also the productivity in the relatively productive sectors has diminished. Problem two. Problem three. When you look at productivity or labor productivity, how productive workers are, it's mostly been driven by this red area, which is investment. Workers have more machines to work with. It has not been driven by increased efficiency and innovation, which is this blue line here. In fact, in Thailand, the contribution of total factor productivity, which is a measure of efficiency and innovation, has actually declined. This was number three. Why? First problem, that this is an index of reform, overall reform in the economy. You see, it was steeper and has become flatter, not just in Thailand, but the whole region. So the period after the great financial crisis has been a period of macro stability, sensible prudential policies, but inertia in reform. And nowhere more so than in your esteemed country. in each dimension, whether it's trade, domestic finance, or what is referred to as product market, a measure of services reform, which my colleague Alessandro is going to talk to you about, there is, if I can be provocative, policy paralysis. That's what's happening on the reform front. Now, I talked about 50 years of your development experience. Let me take a slightly longer view of thousands of years of development. And this is work done by Oded Galor, which has a deep insight. It's about technology. I did not know that technological progress has been going on since prehistoric time for thousands of years. But for thousands of years, every time there was an increase in, say, agricultural productivity, there was also a Malthusian increase in population. So that per capita income stayed flat till almost about 200, 300 years ago. There was no increase in per capita income over thousands of years. I didn't know that. The big change came with the Industrial Revolution. The discoveries of first steam, then eventually electricity, and so on. And that sophistication in technology needed a corresponding sophistication in skills. And that sophistication in skills needed bigger investments in human capital. That is when people chose to have smaller families so that they could invest more in the education of their children. That's when demographic transition happened as well. But the kick came from technology. And I would argue that we are perhaps at a similar moment again. Patterns of trade in our countries, whether it's in my friend Zung's country, Vietnam, where people drop out of school in order to work in the manufacturing sector, or a country like Malaysia, where Adam comes from and Nadia comes from, where the smartest people actually leave, except the few smart people like them who choose to stay because of their parents and so on, that there is a real, I forgot you, Izzati, you also deserve credit. So the bottom line is that trade traps countries into their existing structure of endowments. Technology disrupts. And these new technologies are both putting pressure, but also creating opportunities. How? And this is the simple framework. I never know if this is very innovative and insightful or boring and banal. And you can judge this. That basically development can be thought of as a virtuous cycle between building capacity and creating opportunities. And if you look at this combination of technology and policy reform, Kirita, you're getting distracted by your phone. So so the question is that this is the most important slide of this thing. Technology and policy reform together are on the first side increasing productivity in all sectors of the economy, agriculture, manufacturing, services. And that is increasing demand for skills. And that is also creating more economic opportunities. That's one side of the picture. But remember, you need both technological change, which is happening anyway, but also policy reform in itself desirable, but also a catalyst for technological adoption. On the other side, these new technologies are also helping people acquire the capacities they need, because you're being able to deliver education at distance, improving health. You've all read about these new drugs which are transforming healthcare. But everything is contributing to enhanced human capacities. And it's the interplay between these improved opportunities and capacities that ultimately leads to higher growth and better jobs. And that is really the challenge. If you have reform paralysis, this virtuous cycle is stymied at birth. Quick picture to show you, I won't spend time on this, but
where if you measure the level of human capital in a country and you look at opportunities today in terms of the skill content of a country's exports. You have, of course, countries like Singapore, Hong Kong, Japan, and Australia, which have higher levels of human capital and are producing and exporting sophisticated products. This is the quadrant of development where everybody wants to go. But most of the countries in our region and the world inhabit this southwest quadrant, where both capacities are low and what is being produced and exported is limited. Some countries, like Philippines, are punching above their weight. They have huge learning poverty, but are exporting sophisticated services. Therefore, their ability to expand what they're good at is limited by their human capital, and they face skill shortages. Some countries like China have boosted their capacity by opening lots of universities and enhancing tertiary education. But at the same time, they have cracked down on their services sectors. Whether it's Jack Ma or online education have suffered. That means you created capacity, but killed opportunity. And President Xi Jinping told the people, go back to the factories. As his predecessor says, go back to the farms. So that is an example in a way of excess capacity. A balanced development path for a country like Thailand, which has some amazing capacities, but has stifled its opportunities by not implementing any meaningful reform, is how do you make this transition in a way that doesn't suffer either from the constraints of limited capacity or the excesses of stifled opportunity. Now, how this plays out in 3 different cases is what my colleagues will present. The first is the firm side. How are technologies influencing productivity of firms in the region? What does this mean for jobs? Because a job is ultimately an equilibrium outcome between opportunity and capacity. And finally, my colleague Alessandro will bring these things together to show how services sectors, where you have the most persistent protection in Thailand, are key to unleashing this virtuous cycle. Thank you very, very much. Now I hand over to the most esteemed chairperson.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much again, Aditya, for that very interesting and enlightening presentation on Thailand. As Aditya mentions, now we're going to dig deeper into the different key issues that will hopefully help Thailand grow faster and put it on a more sustainable path. So I'd like to invite Jonathan, the senior economist from the World Bank, to talk to us about Firm's Foundation of Growth. Please, Jonathan.
Thank you very much. So I'll try this stage as well. Hopefully it can hold my weight. So thank you very much for this. This goes beneath the aggregate trends that Aditya just showed. Aditya was talking about the slowdown in TFP growth, a slowdown in productivity growth that we've been seeing more generally, but also particularly in Thailand. And now we go to the firm level, looking within the aggregates, within sectors, to try and look at firms themselves and see who are the actors of productivity growth and see why productivity is slowing and is it linked to technology or the lack of technological change. So in terms of the aggregate, I thought it was helpful to show a diagram explaining where the aggregate productivity growth comes from. So one component is aggregate productivity is determined by what happens to existing firms within an industry. If existing firms get more productive, aggregate productivity grows. And that's true of the most productive frontier firms. If they grow, aggregate grows. And also non-frontier laggard firms, if they catch up, then aggregate productivity grows. A key channel for this is often technology diffusion. New technologies often come first to the most productive firms. You know, people were talking now about data and AI and all these things that are coming and how are they going to disrupt jobs and advanced robotics. They often come to the most productive and then they diffuse to their suppliers and the rest of the economy. But that's not the only way productivity can rise. You can also have entry of more productive firms within an economy and exiting of those less productive through channels of competition that drive out those that are inefficient. And the final channel is reallocation of resources. So if the more productive firms get bigger, if you have more good jobs, more people working in productive firms, then aggregate productivity grows up. So what we do is we have data for several East Asian Pacific countries, and we're hoping to include Thailand shortly in that. And we look at the different channels of productivity growth to see where it comes from in East Asia and Pacific. And what you can see is that there's relatively small contributions from entry and exit. Entry and exit combine to make about 1/3 of aggregate productivity growth. Reallocation doesn't really contribute much. Almost all the action comes from within firm growth. So it's existing firms within industries becoming more productive is what is driving most productivity growth in China, in Vietnam, in Malaysia, in the Philippines, in manufacturing and services. It's pretty robust. We would expect maybe some of these reallocation terms to be a little bit higher, particularly if there's more competitive forces going on. But even when you look at major reform episodes, say in Eastern Europe, after communism, you know, huge changes, still within firm growth, often accounts for about half. So then what we do is we look at some evidence from Thailand, which comes from a joint work between the Bank of Thailand and the World Bank, including Jan here. And they look at manufacturing productivity growth. And here they do a slightly different decomposition. And here you can see that these blue components, this within firm and firms that are more than 5 years old, account for the bulk of the growth. So there's some component from entry, exit contributes negatively, but even within Thailand, it's mostly a within firm story that's driving productivity. So what is happening within firms, within productivity within firms? Before we go into the details in East Asia, I'm going to show you what's happening in advanced economies, in OECD economies for a benchmark. So the productivity slowdown is global, but in advanced economies, the very best firms, these global frontier firms, so the most productive firms in OECD economies are continuing to grow rapidly, as shown by this red line. The problem in advanced economies is everybody else. That the productivity gains are not diffusing to everyone else. You have these superstar firms that are getting bigger and bigger. You have these firms like Microsoft and Amazon and so on that are using technologies in a really sophisticated way. They're growing market share, they're growing productivity, and that's what's driving this red line. The problem is that everyone else is being left behind. When you go to East Asia, you see the completely different story. So I'm showing you here for one country to avoid bombarding you with many, many figures, but it's the same pattern for every case we look at. So here we do the same graph. We look at within an industry, we look at the most productive firms nationally, the average firm and the laggard firms. So the most productive firms are in red and the laggard firms are in green. And we've harmonized it to the first year. And what you can see is that the laggard firms are growing much faster than the frontier firms. The opposite trend to what we were seeing in advanced economies. So the best firms within East Asia Pacific are growing more slowly than the rest of the firms in their economy. And we see this not only in Vietnamese manufacturing, but services and Chinese manufacturing. We see it in almost everywhere we look. And we're hoping to add Thailand into this shortly. Another key point, though, is that when you compare within sectors what's happening to the frontier firms nationally and the frontier firms globally, you can see that the best firms in EAP are not only falling behind everyone else in their economy, but they're also growing less quickly than the best firms globally. This figure here plots the gap. It's the gap between the national frontier, so the best firms in East Asia, and the best firms in the OECD. And what you can see is this gap is increasing, as shown by all these lines going down, all these negative numbers. So in digital sectors, the best firms in East Asia Pacific are falling behind. the same sectors, of course, which are the examples I just mentioned, that use technology, the same sectors that use technology really well in advanced economies. They're the same sectors that are falling behind in East Asia and Pacific. When we do this for non-digital sectors, we don't really see a clear difference. So this is sort of the first suggestive evidence that what the slowdown in the frontier growth in East Asia is driven by technology. So you might think this is good news that the laggard firms are catching up with an economy, even if the frontier is slowing down relative to the best globally. But when you look at what happens in terms of economic activity, you have some reasons to worry, because the national frontier firms, the best productive firms within East Asia, are much, much bigger than everyone else. So this is just employment. So the 10% most productive firms account for 1/3 of jobs in East Asia, whereas the least productive firms account for 4%. If you do this for sales, the statistics are even starker. It's something like 50% to 1%. So if you care about aggregate productivity, you need much, 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 much faster growth for laggard firms to offset the slowdown we're seeing of the frontier. I mean, aggregate productivity is largely driven by what happens to the frontier firms in East Asia, because they're much bigger. So why are the leaders in East Asia not leading? Well, we think technology is a key part of the story. As I've already made reference to in advanced economies, these frontier firms, technology is a big part of their business models. In the Philippines, we have some very nice data on firm use of technologies, and we can see that the use of various types of technologies here, not just having computers, but doing advanced things like data analytics, as well as e-commerce, is robustly correlated with firm productivity. And so it's particularly the case for these advanced things like data analytics. So, but of course, even if there's a productivity gain, what's happening in terms of adoption? So in this chart here, we try and look at what's happening to the technology use for firms in Vietnam and comparing them to firms in advanced economies. So much as we were comparing the productivity in the previous chart, now we're looking at technology. And this bar is what's happening. The zero line is what's happening in advanced economies. And then I'm comparing firms in Vietnam to the equivalent firm in advanced economies. And if you look at the average firm, which is the point 50, the 50th percentile, you can see there's a gap, as you'd expect. The average firm in Vietnam is less sophisticated than the average firm in advanced economies. But what's surprising is when you compare the gaps in technology sophistication and the technologies they're using, the gaps are much smaller for the laggard firms, and they increase as you get towards the more sophisticated firms. So the most technologically advanced firms in Vietnam are way behind the most technologically advanced firms globally. They're not using the advanced data technologies like enterprise resource planning software and these sorts of things, and cloud computing, which is the key thing of growth in advanced economies. This was just Vietnam, showing that the frontier firms are lagging behind in technology relative to the frontier firms in advanced countries. We also see the same thing for Cambodia and Indonesia. So whether you look in terms of productivity or in terms of technology, it seems like the best firms in East Asia are lagging behind the best firms globally. So what can be done? Well, Aditya mentioned about incentives and opportunities, incentives and capabilities. It's a similar thing with technology. Firms adopt technologies because it's productive, it's profitable to do so. So that's a feature of having the incentives to do so, because they have competitive markets. So other firms are pushing them to stay ahead. They have access to foreign markets and access to data in different places, not just in terms of open goods, but open ideas, open data, and so on. And also they have the capabilities to be able to adopt them. It's not incredibly costly and difficult for them to do so. And we know that you need skills to adopt technologies, not just digital skills, but softer skills and so on, as well as adequate infrastructure. So I'm going to talk through these in turn. So when we look at the World Bank enterprise surveys, we ask firms, what do they report as their big barriers to productivity growth? And when you ask in firms in East Asia and Pacific, you can see that the factors. So here we're plotting the most productive the firms in red against the bottom quartile firms. So what are the barriers that the most productive firms are really complaining about compared to the least productive firms? And you can see that the most productive firms in East Asia are generally complaining about barriers to trade, competition, skills, transport, telecoms, the infrastructure, the 3 points we were just mentioning in the previous slide. The challenge is that when you do this for Thailand, you see the complete opposite. Now, I'm not as much as an expert on Thailand by any means as you guys are. So one question for the audience is whether this is plausible. Is it the case that Thailand is very different in terms of the barriers that the most productive firms face? In terms of competition, one key channel for competition is the entry of firms. The threat of entry of firms keeps firms on their toes. It forces them to invest to stay ahead. And one measure of competition is the entry of new firms into the market. Here, if we look at the employment in young firms, so essentially a measure of the startups in an economy over time, you can see in Indonesia it's declined rapidly, particularly in these same digital sectors where we said productivity is falling behind. But then if you look at all these other countries as well, you also see the same trends. So more generally in East Asia Pacific, competition seems to be weakening. Entry is declining over time in manufacturing and services, and there's some evidence it seems a bit more decline in digital sectors. In terms of Thailand, we're still starting this analysis with Jan, but when you take the aggregate evidence in terms of this share of young firms, again, this seems to have declined in recent years. In terms of skills, here again, we try and compare the skills of different firms in East Asia and Pacific compared to, in this case, the US as a benchmark. So we're looking at the management skills of firms in different parts of the distribution. So if we start first with the advanced economies in East Asia, you can see that even in Singapore, Australia, and New Zealand, all firms are a bit worse managed than firms in the US. But the gap is relatively constant. So the worst managed firms is the bottom 10%. The gap is similar to the US, comparing the best managed firms in the US and the best managed firms in advanced Asia. But when you look at the developing East Asian countries, you see a very stark difference. You can see these gaps in management quality get much bigger as you get towards the frontier firms. So the best managed firms in East Asia are much worse managed than the best firms in the US. So this mirrors the story for technology and mirrors the story for productivity. A final point here is on infrastructure. So there's been tremendous improvements in the availability of broadband infrastructure. Almost everyone has a mobile phone now, but actually what matters for many of these advanced technologies to do with data is fixed line broadband. Because to be able to accumulate data, store data, process it on the cloud. And here I'm plotting the access to broadband, their broadband speeds just before COVID and in Q2 2023. And these different colors, you can just see, I mean, you probably can't read the scale, admittedly, but there's tremendous variation in speeds, not only across countries, but even within countries. Thailand's actually had a big improvement over this period, but even within Thailand, there's huge variation across places. And we know that access to stable, high-speed broadband is a real prerequisite for many of these advanced technologies that frontier firms need. So just to sum up, our conclusion is that East Asia Pacific is firms that are leaders are not leading in terms of productivity, technology, skills. They're falling behind in terms of the best firms globally, and they're falling behind the rest of the firms in their economy. In terms of remedying this, we think policy actions are important in terms of competition, in terms of skills, and in terms of digital infrastructure. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. Please give him a big hand. That was very interesting. Do you have any questions for Jonathan? I think we have 10 minutes if you want to ask any questions that you might want to ask. Jonathan pointed just now that, for Thailand, right, the difference for Thailand and East Asia was on that chart that you showed. It seems like trade regulations are not a barrier for for firms' productivity here. What else is not a barrier? Right.
The skills and the
Yeah, which is surprising. I know there's some private sector representatives here. Maybe we can give some inputs to the World Bank. What do you think? I mean, we have many studies, right, that shows that skills are are lacking here, and there's well, it's a mismatch of skills here in Thailand, where firms are looking for skills, but they can't find them. Well, there are skills, but they're not in demand. So, again, that's something that was surprising to me, and maybe yeah.
My name is Vibeke Lussan-Lervag. I'm the chairwoman of the Joint Foreign Chamber of Commerce in Thailand. I think what we see is we see a change in Thailand. So comparisons are a little bit difficult to look at, because what we see here, we're going from a country focusing a lot on manufacturing, where there was a lot of labor intensivity was strong, to now becoming a country that's caught in the middle income trap, a country that where the larger firms at least are investing in technology, and the need of workforce is not the same. But what I see is also, with the global change, going from manufacturing, having to upgrade manufacturing to include or comply with ESG, comply with new regulations, it is difficult for the Thai companies to do that change. 80% of the economy here is SMEs, and the cost of the upgrade is difficult. So I think, yes, we need skills, but we also need reskill, upskill, and new skills in Thailand. And that's probably where we see the biggest challenge, is to do this without liberalizing the service sector. We do need the service sectors to be liberalized so we can have a freer flow of skills, have new technology, and with that also new skills coming in. So as the government is focusing on target sectors that has new technology, new innovation involved in it, where are the skills?
Just, yeah, for your input. Do you want to respond, or?
No, that's a great comment. That's fantastic.
Thank you so much, Vivek. Anybody else would like to ask a question or even offer your comments? Anyone? Oh, yes. Okay. There is a question from Dr. Charika from TDRI.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. So I saw one of the points that you mentioned, that there is a need for more availabilities of firm level data for research and for analysis to understand more about the regions. So basically from Thailand, learning from other regions that you mentioned. So what could be done, or what kind of data that you envisaging that we need to develop and we need to have first?
Question.
This on? So I think Thailand has some actually incredibly rich data, some of the most rich data in the region. I think, but it also has very strict rules on data privacy and accessing this data, understandably. So I think the challenge is often in terms of the value of data is often in linking the data. It's not just accessing a single data set, it's bringing several things together, and then you can tell a complete story. If we couldn't link the firms and technology, we'd just sort of be speculating that, we might even put the two trends together. And I think that's often the challenge, when you have data. And of course, that increases the risks, in terms of privacy and whatever, and you need to have all these safeguards in place. But I think linking data can be particularly useful. And we're having discussions with about trying to access some of the data to bring more of it into here. So you'll notice that it's mostly based on other countries.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, one more question from Dr. Noparat, also from TDRI.
Thank you, Jonathan. I enjoyed your presentation, especially the first, or I think the first or the second one, where you talked about the within firm and also the reallocation or the entry and exit of new firms. I was wondering whether the data includes or your analysis includes from agriculture to manufacturing as well. where I think that's a very significant part, especially for Thailand, where I think we are trying to, or at least there are some talks about trying to move people from agriculture to manufacturing. So I'm wondering, like, based on your analysis, what's your view on that, and how is Thailand, or if compared to other countries, how you view the movement from agriculture to manufacturing and services? Thank you.
So the data we have is based on manufacturing and services for a couple of countries. We haven't got agriculture in here. I think what you're referring to is about what we've been doing here is we've been breaking down the productivity within quite narrow industries. So even within manufacturing, we've been looking at two-digit manufacturing. So comparing, manufacturers of computers to other manufacturers of computers is what we've been meaning by reallocation. But it's a good point that, another channel more to raise productivity is in terms of structural change. So moving across industries, not just in terms of the reallocation within industries, which yeah.
Aditya did mention his presentation. Aditya, would you like to respond to that?
No, I think it's exactly right what Jonathan said, that we have, in the earlier phases, you saw big movements out of agriculture and into manufacturing. In the more recent phases, you see small movements out of agriculture and mostly into services. But these are also the services sectors which are not yet associated with high productivity. But that's where Alessandro's presentation will be important. And also, I think Omar would like to say something.
Yeah, just to complement, I think actually in the presentation on jobs and technology, we might be able to also offer some evidence. In the report, we actually looked at the mobility of workers in agriculture in Thailand by cohort. And what we can see over the last maybe 20 years, that very clearly, it has been essentially the younger cohorts that have been moving into employment in manufacturing and services, while the oldest cohorts remain trapped. So that lack of movement that is seen in the graph is essentially the people who were educated poorly, let's say, the older cohorts many decades ago, that have been having difficulties getting into the jobs that require more skills. So that emphasizes the point on the importance of having investments in opportunity. You do want to make sure that your current cohorts are well equipped, otherwise they may become trapped in the low productivity jobs.
Beck wants to add? Sure.
Not add. I was just looking at the years that your survey is from. So you're looking at 2019 up to 2023. A lot of the data is from, right? Or am I wrong?
A lot of the firm data is actually from before then. It varies across country. I think the last chart was on broadband speeds, which you're right, was these last couple of years.
No, then my question is irrelevant, because if you look at COVID and you look at Thailand, where tourism is one of the biggest service industries, during the years of COVID, that totally disappeared. And what we have seen is that the country is really struggling to bring back the workforce in that industry. So, but it's irrelevant if it's not covering those years.
No, it's the firm level data goes until 2019. I think we've deliberately cut off.
So this is the World Bank's enterprise survey, which surveys firms in manufacturing and services.
So we've been using actually the statistical office surveys for different countries, which often are censuses and things like that.
Great. Okay. Any other questions? If not, we will move on to the next presentation, which is related to what we have been discussing just now, which is the role of technology in enhancing productivity. And we are seeing that many of the East Asian countries are actually not catching up with technology as fast as they should. So I'd like now to invite Daisuke and Zoom to come and present the part on jobs and technology, please.
Good afternoon, Sawadee Kra, everyone. My name is Daisuke Fukuzawa. In this session, with Zon, with my colleague, we talk about jobs and technology, or how technology affects jobs. This is an old and new question. Old because we have faced this question since centuries ago. As Aditya mentioned, from British Industrial Revolution and innovation of electricity, agriculture mechanization, computers, internet. Every time new technologies were introduced in our society, people are worried about what it means for existing jobs. And it's also new because I'm sure you also what ChatGPT can do since 2 years ago. And since then, people are always talking about how AI can affect jobs, and in particular, what jobs will be displaced. So in our study, we shed light on this important topic in the context of our region. But before we go into the technology part, let me briefly give you a lightning shot of the current status and evolution of labor market in our region. First, on employment. So employment rate, overall employment rate is generally high in EAP region compared to other developing countries. So there's not so much job scarcity problem like we see in some developing countries like India. But the working age population is shrinking due to mainly aging. And in Thailand, there's a 3 percentage point decrease during the last decade or so. If you look at the age group, younger workers are struggling to find jobs. So there's high youth unemployment in China and Indonesia, not much so in Thailand. And there's always labor force participation gap between men and women. It improved little, and still in Thailand, there's 16 percentage point difference between men and women. Educational attainment has progressed significantly in the last decade, but still, small share of workers obtain skills needed in modern economies. Only 17% workers have tertiary education in Thailand. And sectoral employment shift has occurred from agriculture previously to manufacturing, but nowadays more to services, especially in lower earning services like in trade, accommodation, and construction. What about labor earnings? Overall wage growth has been robust and faster than labor productivity growth, including in Thailand. If you look at age groups, wages grew faster for younger workers than older workers. So there's something benefiting younger workers. And gender wage gap shrunk, but still women still earn significantly less than men. The skill wage gap, which is a gap between most educated and less educated, has shrinking, but still most educated earn significantly more. There's 76% wage gap between the most educated and primarily educated. If you look at sectoral differences, wage growth has been strong, especially in ICT and technical professionals, which requires this use of technologies. So these are stylized facts, and these are important because technologies may be behind this development, or technologies can fix some of the challenges that our countries are facing. How? So when new technologies are introduced, it can change task content of jobs between what humans will do and what machines will do. But equally important is changing productivity. So agriculture mechanization in the US and European countries reduced food prices significantly. That increased consumers' real income, and they demanded more products, creating new job opportunities for all sectors. So these two channels will have both labor displacement effect and labor enhancement effect, which includes augmentation of existing jobs and creation of new tasks or new occupations, new jobs. Let's look at it more carefully. So this is the most important part in my session, so please take a look. So in this framework, we are mapping all the occupations into 2 dimensions based on what kind of tasks they perform. Vertical axis measures cognitive and physical space. So whether you use minds or hands. And the horizontal axis measures routineness or complexity of the tasks they perform. The left-hand side is routine cognitive or routine physical. Right-hand side is non-routine cognitive, which includes creative or strategy-based work, or non-routine physical work. For example, assembly line workers are located around here because their job is mostly physical and routine. Bank tellers, they do more cognitive jobs, but their jobs are rather routine. Financial analysts do more non-routine cognitive tasks. And taxi drivers are an example of non-routine manual jobs. So this is about jobs, but we can do the same thing, exactly the same thing for different kind of technologies. Then we can see what kind of technologies affect which jobs, which occupation. So modern technologies that we are talking about started from more non-routine space. So robots affect routine manual tasks, so assembly line workers are affected. Computers, or in particular ADMs, affect jobs that is done by occupations like bank tellers. Now, AI is expanding the scope of jobs that computers can do. So some of the tasks that financial analysts are doing may be affected, may be displaced. And the last part is the combination between AIs and robots. In China, some cities already introduced autonomous driving taxis, and taxi drivers are complaining. Elon Musk announced robotaxi about a month ago. So we will see more and more of these technologies coming into this space too. But we must, well, the one element we must not forget is technology will not just displace jobs, it could augment jobs. Occupations such as teachers can use AI to prepare for teaching materials or grade scores. So these are the framework of jobs and technologies. But what it means for our region, our countries, we can first look at the share of employment in this 4 quadrant. This is a EAP aggregate, but we see that the blue area, which is more manual jobs, has higher share of occupations than in orange area, which is cognitive. This is because there are still high share of agriculture jobs and labor-intensive manufacturing jobs. Agriculture here is a tricky part because we put it in the non-routine area, but it has some routine element that could be automated. But it's also true that agriculture workers are mostly informal in our region or in developing countries, and their wages are low. So there is less incentive for automating their work. So this is an economic aspect of technology adoption that is discussed in the report. If we compare this employment share in our region to other regions, we see that share of routine manual occupations is much higher than in advanced economies. This is basically manufacturing jobs. But the biggest difference comes with this pink area, which is non-routine cognitive jobs. The share is much less than in advanced economies. Remember that this area is the one where AI could displace or augment jobs. So we can say that in our region, AI could displace jobs less than advanced economies, but EAP region is also less equipped to benefit from AIs. And if you look at country heterogeneity, you see that Thailand routine manual share is much still less than Vietnam or China, because this is basically share of manufacturing jobs. But the pink area is, again, very low. So share of non-routine cognitive jobs are limited. So this is a big picture of how technology affects jobs and what labor market worker distribution is. And now, Zong will present the actual technology's impact in our labor market.
All right. Well, thank you, Daisuke. Let me say thank you, Daisuke, and So let me just follow up with, let me follow up with what Daisuke has presented to us, right? About stylized fact, a broad development, as well as the jobs distribution. Can you hear me? Okay, all right, all right, thank you. So yeah, so now we can start looking at how technologies impact the development and the job distribution in the region, right? And in the report, we cover a few topics, a few technologies, including industrial robotics, artificial intelligence, as well as digital platforms. And then we have some spotlight discussion on edging and technology and how to work with technology in general, right? But in this presentation, we'll, for the interest of time, focus on the two types of technologies that Daisuke introduced in the stylized diagram, right? So on industrial robots, and this graph is showing you the development, right? Evolution of adoption of robot, right? And here, this graph you could see the green line, sorry, the blue line and blue line is Thailand, and Malaysia is yellow, and those are the two countries in our in ASEAN's 5 plus China that we have data on adoption, right? They are the two countries that started adopting the earliest in the early 2000s. Thailand, the adoption picked up in early 2000 and has stable as a relatively high adoption rate. The other two countries, China in red and Vietnam in purple, started adopting later, about a decade later than compared to Thailand and Malaysia. But they have picked up quite a bit, right, in the most recent years. And China is actually approaching very fast the level of developed countries. So that's the stylized fact. And looking across industries, right, composition across industry, you could see that the most of the concentration basically of adoption is in this expectedly high value-added industries such as automotive and computers and electronics, right? But then you also see the green bars and more sort of primary sectors, right, such as rubber and plastics, right? There are also adoption there. For Thailand specifically, you see that about a half of adoptions in the latest period is concentrated in the automotive sector, right? So next question is, how does this robot penetration in the region affect jobs, right? Is robot displacing job as a lot of people fear, right? Or you see in newspaper. So the initial evidence from correlational evidence that we have here suggests some good news, initial good news, that if you look at the distribution of adoption, so adoption here is on the horizontal axis, and then on the vertical axis you have employment growth, right? In the last decade, looking across industry and across countries, you see among the high adoption industries, right? You see that the robot penetration seems to be positively correlated to total employment growth, right? And particularly, you see that the automotive sector in Thailand stands out in terms of the speed of adoption, as you saw before, right? So in addition to this correlational evidence, we also dig deeper a little bit, and we conducted a more rigorous empirical analysis to study the causal impact, right, of robot adoption on unemployment and wages. And our evidence here suggests that this is for the region as a whole. We have estimates showing that robots actually created between 2018 and 2022 about 2 million high-skilled jobs, right, in the region. But then at the same time, it displays about 1.4 million jobs in the last in that 5-year period of low-skilled formal jobs. And additional evidence suggests that these low-skilled formal workers that were displaced by by robot or automation, they transition into the informal sector. And we have some preliminary evidence, the data coverage, especially the administrative coverage for Thailand from the labor force survey is not as good. So using that imperfect data set that we have for Thailand as of now, we have some preliminary evidence suggesting sort of the same pattern, right? That robots created more jobs, more medium and high skilled jobs than it displayed low skilled jobs. So you see a net gains in employment effect of robot. Right, so moving quickly to AI, and just to start off front, that I think it's still too early to really measure the impact of AI on jobs or wages. And this is true not just for EAP countries, but also in developed countries. But what we can do now, as of now, is we can measure the exposure, the level of exposure to AI, right? Not impact, but exposure. And so doing that, we look at the task content of jobs, and the preliminary evidence that we have so far is that jobs with higher exposure to AI is associated with lower earnings, but then we do not yet see the association of exposure to employment growth. And then if you look across sort of the population subgroups, right? It's the jobs that are exposed to AI, if you think about it, they're characterized, the characteristic of those jobs are more cognitive and less routine. And also, so they are therefore performed by certain subgroups just more likely to be performed, right? By certain subgroups such as female or the higher educated. And so they therefore are more exposed in that sense to AI, right? Exposure here doesn't just mean displacement, right? Exposure here could mean, as Daisuke showed in the Sciolize fact, stand to also a potential of productivity enhancement by working with AI, right? So then, therefore, now this table tries to sort of put together these impact evidence that or exposure evidence that we've discussed so far, and try to link it back to the broad regional development trends that was introduced earlier by Daisuke. And so here, there's some pattern that I think are very interesting when you look at the subgroup heterogeneities. You see that the subgroups that tend to benefit more, that we find tend to benefit more from robots, also those that stand to be exposed more to AI, right? These are the younger workers, women, the more higher educated workers, right? Now, looking at the sectoral variation, it's the occupation that are more routine, as we know, right? Stand to be vulnerable to robots and exposed to AI. And so with all that, then in the last section of our report, we sort of put together, we suggest a few policy recommendations as for countries in terms of taking advantage of technologies, right? And so the first policy we recommended is for country to strengthen skills, right? This is digital skills, social emotional skills, and technology technical skills. Countries should also enhance both capital and labor mobility. They should, as much as possible, remove factor price distortion, and at the same time encourage social protection for the new digital informal economy. And we have some evidence for each related to each of these policy suggestions. We find that on skilled, we do see that the jobs, the digital jobs, right? The jobs with digital skill attached to it, they tend to earn more, right? There's a higher wage premium for those, both in the formal and informal sector, and this is the evidence from the Indonesia. We, at the same time, see that there's sort of a shortage of the supply of STEM graduates in our region, even though it's less of a concern for Thailand. And this is something that Omar referred to earlier, that there's, in terms of the mobility of labor mobility, right? We do see that there's a certain, especially the senior cohort in in Thailand are those with still very high, there's a high share of them, right? Still basically employed in the low productivity sector such as agriculture, right? And that pattern hasn't really changed over the last sort of 20 years. And then finally, in terms of removing fractal price distortion, we have evidence showing that higher taxation of capital relative to labor is associated with lower robot adoption. Even though, again, you see for Thailand, the level of adoption on the vertical axis here is sort of above the predicted value based on the corporate income tax or basically the capital relative to labor tax share. Right? And then lastly, on social protection, again, we have evidence suggesting that the gig economy, gig workers are willing to pay for social protection, right? Social protection schemes such as unemployment insurance, retirement savings, out of pocket, right? In order to be obtain that social protection needed for the informal economy sector. So I'll end here and I'll pass this.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Azul. And as you can give you a big hand, very interesting findings as well. So let me open up now. We have around maybe 5 minutes for, yes, Dr. Bunwara from TDRI. We could give her a microphone. Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I have two questions. The first one, in one of your slides, you mentioned that women benefits more from AI. I wonder what is the explanation? And excuse me. Another question is, after listening to 3 presentations, I couldn't help but wonder if there's a kind of subtle story here about agricultural sector in Thailand. You guys seem to suggest that agriculture has low productivity, tends to be difficult to move out, the employment of older people tend to stuck there, which means it's the skill development would be difficult. But at the same time, agriculture in Thailand is also has a lot of potential for technological adoption. We see many modern agriculture firms using automation and big machineries, and it could probably be placed in one of your slides when you present about the physical and whether or not it's that one. Just wonder if there is any specific observation or recommendation even about agricultural sector development in Thailand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want to respond?
Yeah, so I think I can take the first question on female, and then I think my colleague Omar has thought a bit more about agriculture. Indeed, yeah, it's a challenge that we are facing using this task content information that to be able to really, well, Omar will tell a little bit about it. We have to currently use the ONET data, which is a data set from the US, the task content of jobs data set from the US, just because we don't really have any sort of that detailed survey data on task at the occupation level for any of our EAP countries. And as you can imagine, the task required for agriculture in the US might be different from the task required for agricultural jobs in the region, right? But let me go back to your first question on measuring AI exposure, right, to female. I think it's really just the type, the task again that classified as something that AI can do, right? Again, the non-cognitive tasks, those that require less manual or physical activities, right? And they are the jobs, the type of jobs that tend to be performed by women, or as I presented, higher educated workers per se, right? They are likely to be to take on those jobs more often than their counterparts. And so we do see that's sort of the evidence for again evidence of exposure, not impact of AI, right? But on to Omar.
Aditya?
Yes, sorry, yeah, cognitive, less physical, less manual, more cognitive, and of course more routine, right? Because AI and robot, the type of technologies that often tend to perform routine tasks, right? Okay.
Omar?
Well, thank you. So you see the way the division of labor works is I get the hard questions.
Yes.
The hard, and you ask perhaps the hardest question of all, because this is an issue where, so I should say first that, so this report is still unfinished. So some findings have been published in our most recent regional economic update, but there's going to be a standalone report that we will complete over the next actually few weeks. And in fact, the main task that we have at hand is having I guess, a story on, and as you say, recommendations on what to do with agricultural employment and that transition that is still unfinished. So having said that, first, there is a measurement issue, which Azun referred to, in terms of how do we assign task intensity to agriculture in the region, given that the type of work that is performed is very different from the benchmark developed economies. But besides that sort of measurement issue, there is the question, which I think you very nicely pointed out in your comment, which is how about adoption? Shouldn't we be seeing more mechanization? Is it, over the sort of easy mechanization that already happened in developed economies? Why don't we see that happening more in countries like Thailand? What's the role of digital technologies themselves, right? There's actually quite a bit of evidence that even simple use of mobile technology to provide information to farmers about prices, access to markets, in many countries, actually, they're able to even rent tractors they don't need to buy the heavy equipment. And that has been shown to improve productivity and profits. So why isn't that happening more? And that could be one of the things that we expect to happen. The historical evidence suggests that the movement out of agriculture is driven by essentially two factors: a pull factor, so people getting more opportunities in manufacturing services, we saw that, and wages are there more attractive, so people leave agriculture. But then there's a push factor, meaning some farmers become more productive and drive out those that cannot keep up, and those need to leave to other sectors. And then agriculture as a sector becomes more productive, but then the share of employment in agriculture has to go down. Historical evidence suggests that you will expect a country like Thailand to converge to 5-10% agricultural employment, because that's what we have seen historically when countries grow richer. A very small share of people produce a lot more because they use more capital and more technology. One big issue is that transition with when you have cohorts that do not have the skills. And what will happen then to those workers? I mean, what we have seen from the evidence of manufacturing is that robots, when they penetrate in manufacturing, they actually displace more the less skilled and tend to be the older workers. So that creates a challenge also in terms of equity. So as you see, there's many factors here, and we really are trying to see the story. Actually, if you had data on adoption of these technologies in the case of Thailand, we will be more than happy to look at that and incorporate it into our work. Thanks.
Thank you so much. There's one more question from Dr. Salinthorn from TDRI. And if people who are online, if you would like to ask any questions, please feel free to type in the chat box in Zoom, and I will ask the questions for you. Thank you. Dr. Salinthorn, please.
First of all, thank you very much for your insightful presentation. I find this presentation very useful for us, as me and my colleague here, Mr. Pasharapon and also Dr. Naprut, are writing the white paper on AI adoption in manufacturing sector, and we will propose the white paper to the EDA very soon. So hopefully, I think we can definitely use your presentation as our reference, if you may. I do have a few questions regarding the presentation. So firstly, in your presentation, routine jobs have been identified as vulnerable to automation and exposure to AI. And so in your opinion, or if you have the data, what industries or sector in Thailand are most at risk, and how can they be supported to transition smoothly toward the greater AI integration? And secondly, what initiatives have been implemented by the higher income countries or the OECD countries to reskill workers to in routine jobs so that they can transition to the roles that are less vulnerable to job displacement? Thank you. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for the great question about the AI routine occupations, both manual and cognitive. AI will be mostly affecting routine cognitive, but I think your question is more general routine occupations. And we divided this routine, cognitive, routine manual, and non-routine part based on the occupations. And the most of the routine occupations are first manufacturing, except for some like high-skill professional jobs. Most of the manufacturing jobs are routine. And within the services, there's a clear cut between high-skill services and low-skill services. And low-skill services here include like sales workers, accountants, are generally relatively classified as routine jobs. And Malaysia, I think one of the slides we showed that routine manual jobs, so Thailand, Thailand is 18%, and the routine cognitive share was, I think, 20-some%. I think in the case of Thailand, manufacturing is still strong, and services are also very large. So these two sectors are the sectors that is mostly routine occupations. And in terms of what other advanced economic countries are doing, in our policy section, we talked about skills, not just advanced education, but also digital skills and STEM education. So these are the way that workers can equip themselves to do more high-skill, non-routine jobs. And so within the manufacturing sector, within the services sector, workers can transition from low-skill tasks to high-skill jobs. And that will equip themselves from the displacement effect of AIs and robots. It is, in my opinion, and I think there are a lot of other policy options that countries can take.
Great, thank you very much. Now that you've mentioned services, I think that's something that's also very important for Thailand. There's one quick question. Sorry, I didn't see you. Please, Dr. Ariporn, yeah, from TDRI, please go ahead.
It's not a question, but I have something to share about how women can benefit from the AI. And we can see clearly in energy sector, because in the past, when women would like to work in the, let's say, the underground mine or the upstream, it's quite a big barrier for them. Because it's like that you need to take care about the safety, concern about the safety issue or the working environment that is not fit for the woman. But when we have the AI, it's benefit a lot for the woman because you can work anywhere and they control, check the system on the underground mining or the upstream from the computer and the technology. So it's like that open the job opportunities for the woman. So I think that it is one of the big benefit for the AI that can expose the opportunities for women in the energy sector. And I think that for the other sector as well, that in the past, it's a big barrier for the woman, but it's now open a lot of opportunities.
Thank you so much. Dr. Ariporn is our energy specialist. So she knows all our jobs in energy sector. So with that, I think I'd like to really thank Daisuke and Zung so much for their presentation. Please give them a big hand again. And as I mentioned, services is very important as well. So let me invite Alexandro to talk about his session on services, please.
Thank you very much. I will start with an exchange of microphones with Aditya so that everybody gets the microphone. Because it matches their shirt. That matches the shirt. So I'm Alessandro. Thank you for being here, TDRI, for hosting us. We are very eager to exchange with you on many topics. The second thing I want to say is that I've been told to wear yellow because today is Monday and it's a Thai tradition to wear yellow. So you cannot say that the World Bank comes in the country and there's no idea of the context in which we come. Also, we need to be mindful about time because I know that we have only 15 minutes from the break. So, and I'm the only person between you and a wonderful break package that waits for you. So after all of this, I can introduce Services Unbound, Digital Technologies and Policy Reform in East Asia and the Pacific, which is the third report we are presenting for you to you today. In case it was not clear, we are presenting you 3 reports, not 1. So it's not that the World Bank reports are the divine comedy. So like you got 3 at the cost of 1. And the last one is actually something that will be really a preview. So this is the view and the preview because it's going to be published very quick preview because the next month we will gonna launch the report. So something now of substance before all the form. So how to introduce this topic? Well, I should say I'm very bad at PowerPoint, so bear with me, but a rainbow of facts about services in the EAIP. So first, the share of services in both value added and employment increased significantly in the last years. This is of course true also of Thailand. Second, services are key contributor to aggregate productivity growth. Third, export and FDI in services have grown faster than in manufacturing in the last decade. And let's see what happened tomorrow, but about manufacturing trade in the war, but let's see. So fourth, the expenditure on services increases with income level. So we can predict in the future as the level of income in the region hopefully will grow and increase in the demand for these activities. Fifth, services are more skill intensive than manufacturing, and sixth, are less carbon intensive than manufacturing with the except of transport. Last but very much not least, female employment ratio increases with development faster in services than in manufacturing, which means that the ratio of female to male in jobs is higher in services and it grows faster than in manufacturing with the level of development. So there are many good reasons why we should look at services with interest, even if this is obviously a region that is well known for manufacturing. So Aditya did a great job in explaining the framework of this report. So I will just mention that this report you can think of answer to 3 questions. So the first question is, what is happening? The second question is, why does it matter? And the third question is, what should be done so that this virtuous cycle between enhanced economic opportunities and enhanced human capacities can effectively deliver the higher growth and the better jobs that we all desire for every country in the region. Okay. So what is happening? So a lot of what is happening you already saw in the presentation of Jonathan and Daisuke and Zong. So just maybe another slight angle here we could add is the digitalization, which is obviously booming across the AP region. Google Temasek now quotes it at around 7% of GDP. Another way to see how this digital economy is booming is also considering the flow of venture capital into digital service activities. Here we do have a little bit of data for Thailand as well. It's a bit dated, 2022, we know the dried up that came after, but even if Thailand is not like one of the biggest recipients of funds compared to say to China or South Korea or Japan, you can see that it's quite heterogeneous, the type of activities in which these funds are actually going. So on one side, you have digitalization and funds that are coming in the region in these sectors. On the other hand, this comes with an undoubtedly inequality in access. So access, in this case, is simply internet access, is still heterogeneous across geography, income, and education. If you look at geography, Thailand is not super badly placed compared to other countries in the region like Vietnam and Philippines, where the rural-urban divide in access is much stronger. If you look at education, of course, not surprisingly, the most educated have much more access than the least educated. And even if the gradient in Thailand is actually flatter than it is, say, in Myanmar or in Indonesia, still is quite present. So something that we should be careful about. So this walk we are going through this report is one leg technology and digitalization. The other leg is services reform. So here we present you some data from a database which is called the Service Trade Restrictiveness Index. It's a simple index varying from 0 to 100, where 100 is the most restrictive regime and 0 is the most liberalized regime. And here, this is all data because the new data we'll discuss at the end. So if you look at the dynamics between 2008, which is the blue, and 2016, which is the orange, you do see in many countries of the region some sort of partial policy reform, even if it's stalled, as Aditya was mentioning at the beginning. So why these two legs for our work are important? And here, remember, three elements: productivity, jobs, and access. If you think about productivity and digital technologies, Jonathan already spoke about it, so I'll just move directly into the policy reform and productivity, which instead we didn't talk about yet. So a deep dive into Vietnam showed us that removing barriers to entry and competition increased labor productivity of services firms. And we tried to disentangle the effect into the different types of firms: SOEs, foreign firms, small and medium enterprise, large private firms. And interestingly, all but the large private firms are benefiting from liberalization in services in terms of their labor productivity. The number, the headline number, is the average productivity effect is 2.9% yearly over the period considered. More interestingly, also the manufacturing firms that utilizes these services as intermediate inputs benefited in terms of productivity, but quite surprisingly here, the effect is really driven by small and medium-sized enterprises. Okay, so this is very interesting, and maybe it couples with the results of Jonathan on large firm not leading. And the headline numbers is that the average productivity effect, so this overall effect, is about 3.1% yearly, following the liberalization in services that Vietnam experienced between 2008 and 2016. So productivity. And to give some flavor to these numbers, in the report we present what we call the out of the box. So we sit down with entrepreneurs, with managers, with experts, and we ask them about stories that we could share with everybody in this room and beyond. So in particular, we actually did interview an important software export firm on Vietnam. Of course, I cannot tell you whom, because the report will be out only in December. If you can guess, we talk about this at the coffee break. And we asked them, can you give some specific examples of how you operate within the manufacturing customers? And they spoke about AI, and they spoke about the ability to assemble large teams of high-quality engineering quickly. So you realize that these firms can do it in Vietnam, but if in other countries, the foreign firms that could do that are not allowed in, then we have a problem. So productivity. Second reason why these drivers are very important: jobs and skills. So here the deep dive is done in Indonesia. And here we found both that digital jobs are those that require the higher level of education. So here you see the fraction of workers in digital, informal, and formal jobs who holds a diploma or university of higher. And where are these jobs? In the services sector. So the largest share of the digital jobs are precisely found in professional service, finance, insurance, and ICT. So not surprisingly, as we look forward, skill, as we already discussed before in the session, becomes a key critical input. But the question is, what skills? So my second story comes from the Philippines, where we sat down with several BPO firms, and we precisely asked them, what type of skills do you look when you recruit? And how is this evolving with the changes in technology? And perhaps not surprisingly, I would say, one of the things they said is critical thinking and creativity will matter even in how we serve our client. But much more surprisingly, what they said that, therefore, both math and the arts should be pushed not just at the basic level, but all the way through college. So the question is, should engineers study also philosophy, history, and literature? Third point, access. Access to what? Well, access to education. So we saw how the use of EdTech is actually improving significantly the performance of students in standardized tests. Access to health. So in certain cases, for instance, we have an interesting case from the Henan province in China, where telemedicine improved both access and satisfaction of the patients involved. And finance. Here, we are really in the country heroes of this expansion of digital payment and availability of digital platforms. I have to say, you are much better in China because at least you can pay with a credit card. I was in June in China, and with the credit card, I was a beggar because I couldn't pay anything. Instead, in Thailand, you can still pay with credit card, which is great. But anyway, to say that, of course, the access to finance can be delivered through digital technologies. And so to recap and to give you for the third time the same framework, sorry. And this is because in Latin we say that repetita juvent, so repeating is important. We spoke about what is happening. We spoke about what is important. Now let me finish with what needs to be done. And so in this report, we identify 3 drivers: liberalization of regulation, skills and infrastructure, international cooperation. And here is where the most recent data are coming. Now, Chairwoman was mentioned before, let's liberalize service sector. Yes, we need to do that. So as you can see here, the countries in the region, I remind you, higher means most restrictive regime, are experiencing most restrictive regime than what would be predicted by the level of development, and Thailand in particular. So to go deeper than these numbers, examples of where this index is coming from, for instance, are foreign equity restrictions, right? You see that, and this might be not true anymore. So these are 2022 data because it takes time to run these surveys. But things like the maximum foreign ownership allowed in greenfield investment or in M&A seems to be much lower in Thailand than in other countries, for instance, in the commercial banking sector. Now, notice that the service trade liberalization is a very complex business, not only because it's loaded of political economy consideration that will be very interesting maybe to discuss in the following panel, but also because even when at the national level some reforms are implemented, they might be not enough. And my final story regards the logistics in Indonesia, where basically what we discovered that even if a lot of reforms were implemented by the central government, regulatory oversight of logistics continue to be highly fragmented. So if foreign firms need to talk with 4 ministers, or for each individual island you have different regulations, then even the national reform doesn't bite as it should or could. Second, skills infrastructure. Infrastructure already spoken by Jonathan. Skills, obviously, we said it's a problem. Digital skills lacking in many countries. And last, international cooperation. Of course, it's going to be an interesting week for that international cooperation aspect. But in a very specific sense, we look at the cross-border data flows, for instance, which is going to be crucial in the development of the digital economy. And we notice, just updating what was a World Development Report map, that the countries in the region have a very heterogeneous approach to the regulation of data transfer. And so probably there, as we were in a conference here, ASEAN could be also an interesting framework to start thinking about more harmonization and stuff. So just to be back to where we started from, what we want to propose here more in general, since Aditya didn't spend a lot of time on this slide, is the importance of policies that would bring countries not just to develop the opportunity in absence of capabilities, not just to develop capabilities in absence of opportunities, but to actually develop both, to develop this virtuous cycle that we've been talking about all of this hour and a half. And so, as you also saw, as Thailand is here, the question for the future is, will be Thailand just developing the capacities without any opportunity? Will Thailand be actually lagging behind? Because this is obviously a race, right? Where every country is changing over time. Or will Thailand finally delivering the virtuous development we were waiting for? And so with this, we hope that we'll have a productive discussion in the coming hour. And I will thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Asayo. That was very interesting as well. Any questions? We can have some questions before we go for break, maybe 5 minutes. Any questions that you would like to raise on services in Thailand? I know the Foreign Business Act is always an issue, which limits the foreign ownership, right? And that's why nothing has changed over the.
Why? That's the question.
So that's why on the services trade restrictiveness index, right? We always score below other countries. But in any case, I think the fact that some of the audience mentioned that the coming of technology, right, the coming of AI would help spur the services sector and maybe enable like women or others who in the past could not participate in jobs, in the services job to be part of the services sector as well. Any other questions that you would like to ask Jonathan, or anything you want to offer as comments? Okay, I think everybody's hungry for their break. So this report will be out in December, right?
December 2nd. So he can commit to that.
Well, thank you so much then, Alexandra, for the sneak preview, right, of this report. And again, I'd like to thank Aditya and his team so much for coming all the way to Thailand to present this to us in person. This is such a rare opportunity. I think we can have some more discussions over the coffee break before we come back for the panel discussion, which we will have four esteemed Thai panelists who will be joining us. So let's take a 10-minute break and then we'll come back. Aditya, do you have anything to say? Okay, no, nothing to say. All right, then let's take a break and we'll come back in 10 minutes. Thank you. For the panel discussion session to have four esteemed panelists here on the panel. And they have agreed to speak in English as well. So we have Dr. Wei Tang Puang Sap. He's actually now the Deputy Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Digital Economy and Society. And we also have with us from the NESDC, Dr. Anand Chanok Sakonawat. She's the Director of the Macroeconomic Office at the NESDC. And we also have the private sector. So we have Kun Paranon, who is now the Deputy Chairman of the Federation of Thai Industries, and he oversees the technological developments of the members in the Federation of Thai Industries. So, and the last but not least is a great example of a very innovative firm in Thailand called MoveMe. And of course, Kun Pongsit will tell us all about that and tell us what inspired him and what made the business as it is today. But before we go to that great example, I'd like Dr. Wei Tang to maybe introduce and tell us more about the digital technology situation here in Thailand. Where have we come so far? How do you see us going forward? What government policies are there? So what I have asked each panelist is that since their topics are all, quite distinct and different, that each person might speak for 10 minutes on the questions that I ask, and then we'll have around 20 minutes for Q&A, if that's okay. So please prepare your questions. We will have a Q&A session after this. So Dr. Wei Tang, please.
Dr. Kilita, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. I'm honored to share with you today 4 key messages regarding digital development in Thailand and what digital development is ahead for the kingdom, actually. What I'm about to talk first. Actually, many of you might already know that, but I have to say it again because I think it is important. Thailand is at the forefront in internet usage and infrastructure. Mobile banking adoption rate in Thailand, we were #1 in the world, not in ASEAN, not in Asia. Besides that, QR payments, also we rank #5 again in the world, not in ASEAN, not in Asia. #3 on the slide, e-commerce adoption. We are #3 in the world. But what surprised me the most is weekly online purchases. We are very good shoppers. Well, yeah, #1. Yeah. You're not surprised, right? No, not at all. Actually, I'm surprised. When my colleague presented the number to me, I asked them to check, please double check it. But anyway, here you go. And the reference is on the board. Also, the internet speed for the fixed line. In Thai, we call net ban or household internet, the fixed line. The speed was number 4 in the world. Furthermore, I have to say some words about the internet, the fixed line. Actually, the high-speed internet, not only among the fastest in the world, we can cover all over the country, every single village in Thailand, about 80,000 villages, has high-speed internet already. And the project is under Ministry of Digital. I'm from Ministry of Digital, so I have to straight it out again. This project even won international award from International Telecom Union and affiliate to the United Nations. We won the winner award, competing with over 90 projects around the world, and we won the award. The project is completed 4 years ago. We reached every single villages over the Thailand. Furthermore, if you might already know that 5G is the latest telecommunication technology in the world right now, was available in Thailand even before the most country in the world. It even before Singapore, which I'm so proud because Singapore is so good and civil servant in Singaporean civil servant is so great. They're so efficient. And we have 5G even before US and United Kingdom. I love them both, so I have to mention them. 5G in Thailand is already covered all commercial areas and almost all of the country. There is another project which is worth mention. When I say worth mention, it means under my ministry, so I have to mention it. Otherwise, not a good representative of the ministry. We have the ASEAN Digital Hub by the ministry, which is a digital infrastructure project interconnected countries via mostly submarine fiber optic cable. If you have to send a lot of information, you have to use some cable anyway, not on the sky. The projects allow Thailand to bypass again Singapore. And it makes our internet very stable. And more important, our price is now very competitive. The second message that I would like to share is digital laws in Thailand. These Thai acts are not ministerial levels. They are national laws, which normally needed to pass through parliament that takes at least a year or two and we complete it. And each law would require a lot of resources, as you already know that. I will mention some of them. The first one, the act created my ministry 7 years ago. Actually, my ministry, Digital Economy and Society, just created 7 years ago. And number 7, on the screen, the Electronic Transaction Act allows our legal documents to be done electronically. So anything on paper legally will be legally electronically in Thailand right now. Number 8, which is very important, Electronic Transaction Act legalized and create digital ID business, which you know that digital ID is the backbone of the digital economy. And right now we have about 40 million Thais have digital ID. Number 9 and 10 are extremely important, as we all know that digital economy cannot survive without what? Privacy and cybersecurity. We also created 2 laws. The 16th is not created by my ministry. We have digital asset business law among the first in the world. Actually, digital asset in Thailand is so huge industry right now. The third message is about cloud services, data centers, and some related. 2 years ago, AWS, many of you, if are not in the telecom technology industry, you might never heard about AWS. But A standing for Amazon. You know Amazon, right? Amazon Web Services. It is the largest cloud service provider in the world. Among the world market of the cloud, Amazon Web Services has 34%, basically more than a third of the world market. It announced that it will invest in Thailand $5 billion to make a regional hub. It's not only for Thai, it's a regional hub. But more important, Azure, you know Azure? It's Microsoft Azure. It's the second largest cloud service provider in the world. It's also announced that it will use Thai as a regional hub. How about the third? Google, have you heard? Google Cloud, I'm sure everyone has used it. I'm using it right now. Basically, Google also just shook hands with my prime minister, the new one, the beautiful one. You know the name. Google also announced that it will invest $1 billion in Thailand to make a regional hub. If you look further on the diagram, Alibaba, IBM, even other Chinese brand name in the chart, all the big player, the global player in the cloud, which is the infrastructure of the modern technology of AI, they all announced that they will use Thailand as a regional hub. This is Azure, like came from 3-4 months ago with the prime minister. Okay, and this is my beautiful current prime minister. Actually, just not so long ago, that's 30 days ago. I forgot her name, sorry. So the first message that I like to share with you is the future of our digital economy. 15% is a number. It's a growth rate of digital economy that was projected by the joint study. Google, Temasek, and Bain Consulting, the joint study, they released that and they projected that Thai digital economy will grow 15% on the average per year for 4 years. That is a huge number. I was so shocked. But worst, they released a new one and updated the latest one. They said, no, 15 is not good. We want 17 projection for Thailand digital economy to grow each year for 4 years. That is amazing for me. But my friends, 17 is so small comparing to the coming next number. This is come from my colleagues, Sapapat and ESDB. Actually, the number is 30% of GDP, gross domestic product. What's the NESDB plan? It was actually, we have a national economic and social development plan, and the latest one is the 13th plan for 2023 to 2027. It's a 5-year plan. Basically, it's a target. It's not a projection, not a growth rate. They target that in just 3 years, 4 years from now, digital economy of Thailand will have a share of 30%. What do you feel? Actually, for myself, I shocked already twice from 15 and 17. The last one, I already, how to say that, fainted. have to be stronger than shock, and then fainted. To give you a perspective, you know the finance industry, right? Finance industry is banking industry combined with capital market, combined with insurance. Altogether, we call finance industry or financial sector. The GDP is about 8 to 9%. Another sector is agriculture sector. agriculture sector in Thailand is approximately 8 to 9% also. Another sector, construction plus real estate, altogether, construction and real estate about 6-7%. So that's why this 30% number is so, I don't know, get out of the world for me. So my colleague will explain how they come up with this number. So in sum, digital development in Thailand is nothing but, for me, amazing. Our governments, our ministry, to name a few, have laid down solid digital infrastructure and modern rules of laws. And at the same time, have promoted, I have to say that, quite successfully, digital investment from most domestic and international players. This in turn is sure to benefit Thais and our economy. Actually, I have to say a few more words about myself. I myself have moved from Ministry of Finance to this ministry 6 years ago when it's created. I feel so fortunate to play a small role in this rapid and exciting digital development in Thailand. Looking ahead, we see a continued fast-paced development and rather bright future, of course, with cautious. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Deputy Permanent Secretary Wei Tang. If I could just ask you a quick follow-up question. You've shown us, phenomenal numbers on the future of the digital economy and the size in Thailand. Are there any more policies or infrastructure, any measures that the Digital Economy Ministry is thinking about for the future that could maybe bring this number to reality?
I have 10 minutes. I think I use up. So if you allow me, I will answer.
Yes, of course.
Okay, of course, I will answer. The first ones, we know that what I stressed already, the infrastructure, and we know that the future world, actually the current world, cloud, AI, and basically they all come together and data center. This is our priority. And we have the policy we call cloud first policy. Cloud first policy means we don't allow any agency. Even right now, we have the, cabinet resolution already that you cannot ask for the budget to create on-premise, on-site data center. You have to use cloud. By using the cloud, we have higher cyber security, and we have the cost saving a lot. From our past experience, we can save costs alone by pooling all the resources together, at least 30% of the budget. But more important is that in the future, we need some infrastructure for AI and for many things. With this all together and the cloud, it becomes automatically standardized all the data types, everything can flow easily. That is the first one. Actually, there are so many. And what we are working on is like we have the basic infrastructure all over the country, actually 4 years already. We try to make more benefits or add value to those basic infrastructure that we have that reached all the villages. There are so many projects with that. And the last one, I just say it quickly, we aspire to be a digital hub. Of course, with this in mind, we have many assets in our hands already. Low cost of internet, good digital technology available. And we even have something better than Singapore. I'm so sorry, I don't know what's wrong with me. I always mention Singapore. Singapore has no land and electricity bills is so high. So we are, in my opinion, we are ready to overtake them in the data center and as a regional hub because we have resources, many things that we aspire to be. just for now. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for those insights. I've always known that the digital connectivity in Thailand compared to other countries in Southeast Asia, except of course for Singapore, is one of the strongest. And we have a wide coverage of 5G, much more than any other country in Southeast Asia, of course, except for Singapore again. So that's something that we owe to the Ministry of Digital Economy for, putting their efforts in, in the past 7 years in developing this. So now, after we have heard about the digital technology that is pervasive in the Thai economy, I'd like to turn to Dr. Anand Chanok from our planning agency, the NASDC. How do you see these technologies, including digital and non-digital technologies, affecting production and services here in Thailand, or even jobs in Thailand? How are you seeing that from the NASDC?
Thank you. First of all, thank you, TDRI and also the World Bank for inviting me to join this session. I would say that we have kind of like, I have very good opportunity to join the presentation earlier. It's very, very useful for my work. I mean, we have the same, interest in which that we just have recently have the annual seminar on productivity by my office just a couple months ago. So it would be nice if we could like collaborate in the further work in terms of enhancing productivity. Back to your question, I'm gonna this just showing during our drafting process of our 13 national plan that we review a lot of mega trends, including aging population, urbanization, climate change, and also including technological disruption and digital transformation. We realize that this kind of technological advancement will benefit productivity, as you mentioned earlier, and shorten working process, increasing in terms of value and also the output, for example. But I would say that there were two sides of the coins, and you already mentioned in terms of the effects to the job. First one would be in terms of the job replacement that we input in our 13 plan, and the second one is in terms of unequal access to digital or a digital divide. That's one of the second. In terms of job replacement, what I would like to share would be the fact that it definitely will affect in terms of mostly of the low skill labors. And according to the data from the EAU has been forecast that the AI and automation will affect unemployment rate in Thailand by about 5% within 2035. And so we use that kind of data, and also following the World Economic Forum that has been classified those affected labor groups into high risk and also low risk. It seems that those in the high risk sectors, including, for example, data and communication, financial and insurance, administrative and supportive services, and also scientific and technical services. If you look at this high risk group of labor, you see that according to our workforce of Thailand, according to the labor force survey, about almost 40 million. This chunk of high risk labors is only shared by about less than 5%. But if you look at it in terms of low risk labors, including, for example, construction, accommodation, food services, and also healthcare services, this chunk of labor, low risk labor, has amounted to about more than 6 million, or about 15% share of total labor force in Thailand. So compared to these two, high risk and low risk, you see that in Thailand, the effect will mostly observed in those low risk labor force group of people. So I would say that would be the thing. But listening to your presentation in terms of jobs, effects on job market, we will go back and then we will reconsider if we have to classify into like cognitive, physical kind of skills, and you getting more details of the effect on the job in Thailand. The second one I will share is in terms of unequal access to technology and digital, and including, for example, those high income group of people, low income group of people, or between large business firms and also SMEs, which is contribute to a very large part of the society. So I think I'm going to discuss it in terms of the effect on the job market.
Right, right. What about the effects on productivity? Have you seen any effects of technology on productivity of large companies, small companies? Have you done any studies on that at NACC?
Not quite yet, but we also align with the study from the World Bank and also the peer according to the firm level data that is showing that kind of thing. Yeah.
Now, coming to services, I have to ask because one of the reports that was presented is on services, right? So, as you saw, we are pretty restrictive on our services, mainly because of the Foreign Business Act, right? How do you see, the services sector progressing in the future? Could technology help, or is it more of like a policy, hurdle that we will still not have a more liberalized services sector, or how do you see it going forward?
Right. Definitely those services that will be replaced by the technology will be the one I already shared in details. But according to the OECD, as you mentioned, service trade restrictiveness index is showing that Thailand quite not in a good position, about 4 out of on average 2% among OECD countries. And mostly highest score will be observed in, as if you look at the data, the rail freight system, and also including as well as in terms of the accounting and also insurance that it's got the highest score. So what would be the restrictiveness would be the things that in terms of mobility of the skilled labor from foreign countries. So this is the thing that we need to if I could ask for the policy recommendation, would be remove the barriers of those restrictiveness, in particular for mobility of the skilled labor.
Professionals from abroad.
Right. Yeah.
Wow. Right. Anything else you want to add?
In terms of policy, if I may share that according to the 13th national plan, we have also mentioned about about 2 sets of policies recommendation. The first one would be in terms of to be prepared of the policy in order to adopt technology quite well, including building up the ecosystem, including what you just mentioned in terms of the readiness of the infrastructure, and also including as well as database. And the second one would be in terms of the human capital. This is what I would like to share that you mentioned that high skill labor force would be benefits from the technological development. But for Thailand, we quite have that small part of the high skill labor force. The thing is that I would like to share is that we have lots of plans. We have national strategy, long-term plan. We have 5-year plan. We have action plan as a result of the different ministries. But what is the key or the heart of that is that how to translate those plans into actions. And this is a thing that we have, collaboration with OECD and doing kind of project and the boosting productivity project. And I believe that we could share the result by the beginning of next year. Is getting to the end of the result. But the focus will be the fact that we touching upon institutional factor in which that those policy related to productivity in Thailand was not quite aligned. We have tried scatter in terms of productivity, both in terms of analysis and so both in terms of the policies making process. So this is the thing that will reflect through that study by the OECD. So this is the thing that you will including. And in terms of human capital, this is earlier mentioned that I believe that many ministry has been taking upon that. And I'm not from Ministry of Higher Education, but I know that there's lots of things that has been done. For example, they have been launching recently for, under so-called AI for education, AI for innovation, the things that, they're trying to produce the labor supply that has been related to the AI. Also in terms of the targeted sectors as well, including not just EV, but also the, skilled labor force in semiconductor, in electronics, for example, that has been done a lot.
Right. Yes, and I can add to that. Partly is also because of the demand for these skills from the foreign direct investments that are pouring into Thailand right now, whether they be in electronics, in electrical vehicles. They all need, a different set of skills than what we, have today. So there is a strong need and urgent demand for upgrading the skills of the current workers to meet those demands as well. So I think there's a push from everywhere that we need to adhere to. So now this is very good. So I want to then ask the private sector now. So in the private sector, because from the Federation of Thai Industries, they're mostly manufacturing firms that are their members. How has technology, affected the businesses of your members and also the jobs, in the firms that are your members? How have they adapted as well? So please go ahead, Kun Paranon.
Good afternoon. My name is Paranon, and as a vice chairman for the Federation of Thai Industry, let me talk about the FTI a little bit. That what we have is we have all together as a private sector. Manufacturing is almost 16,000 companies in the federation. And mostly we have all together about like 47 groups, which is for example, like my group, it used to be like digital group also. And we have like automotive part and so many things in the federation so far. And let me know how to handle this one first.
Just press
this one?
Yeah. Press to the right.
Okay. Yep. Okay. So I'm talking a little bit what we are right now as a federation. So we have a private sector in the three part of in Thailand: Federation of Thai Industry, Chamber of Commerce, Thai Chamber of Commerce, and also Banking Association. This is a private sector that drive the country so far also. And we come to the Thailand right now for percentage that happened in Thailand, which is we talk about Industry 4.0. What does it mean? In Industry 4.0 right now, we are talking about the robot. And right now, in the world, I'm talking more about Industry 5.0 because then technology is coming a lot more as IoT and even AI that coming and changing the world as the time's coming very near right now, I think. And in Thailand, you may see that Industry 1.0 is about like old time as a SME, very small one. Maybe we're talking about like we use a boiler thing, and Industrial 2.0 we adapt more into the technology, not technology. It's about machine, and after that into bigger one is like a 3.0. We're talking about automation, which is we are bringing the major Industry 2.0, which is a big group right now. We are trying to transform, as FTI doing is digital transformation, to bring them to the 3.0 as automation. And after that, we are dreaming and bring them into 4.0 as a Thailand. We are working so hard in terms of move all the majority manufacturing into that one, because you may see the competitors among the Southeast Asia. So we have a lot of countries starting to develop, and the country that come near us all the time, we may see in this Vietnam, which is we are talking about Vietnam for a long time, that is behind us a lot. And right now, as I think, maybe they are chasing our back already right now. So the impact of the technology industry sector, I might talk about like, for example, like cost. So Thai industry, we have a lot of high costs right now because we keep doing, we don't have anything to calculate our costs. We just keep doing, keep producing. That is Thai style. And even we cannot compare to the big one, like large enterprise, for example, like petroleum one, those kind of things, they are so big already. And we have like a lot of risks so far that we have about like uncertainty about how to work in the office, in the enterprise also. Second one, the knowledge. We have a big group also that we lack of the skill labor right now is IT skill labor. In terms of industry right now, even if we first start, we lack of the IT, the technology, and now we lack a lot of OT, which is a need for industry. OT means operation technology, which is a look after the IoT, how to do the machine learning, blah, 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 and move all the data to use to calculate whatever the cost that we have to produce. That one happening also. And we talk about next one is like organization structure. The structure right now that Thai is Thai style, is always Thai. We still doing Thai style. We are trying to adapt how not, to make the structure not complicated, but we still complicate. Even bigger, we are more complicated. That's why everything will be slow. We try to copy the from the some other organization to do faster, but we still cannot. Or working process that we are doing, like I'm talking, we still do the same thing all the time, keep doing whatever we are doing. We think we are success already, and we try to remain. That one come from the research and what we've seen in the majority. You may surprise that the FTI, we have like a committee, more than 300 people, because all around the country, from the 16,000 companies, so we have more than 300. And we have vice chairman as of me, about like 10. And to look after all the institute inside, which is we have energy, water, climate change, that we are looking everything. We have followed the world, but we try to make it faster so far. And the next one that we happen is we fears of the change. What we are using, if we are using the normal practice, we will use the old one. When we use the paper, like me, I have iPad, I have a lot of phone, but this one bigger because my eyes is gone too far already now. So we come back to the paper. It's what we talk about paperless, So now go to another one that we are talking. What is a slow move? We are seeing that whatever slow industry that we have is agriculture industry. That's why I mentioned earlier that we are doing the same thing. We always looking for other countries around the world, how we do the new agriculture. Even right now from the ministry, DE, we have DIPA, we call Digital Economy Promotion Agency, which is give the money and support to all the business sector with the IT. And we are doing smart agriculture. What they happen, they supply drone to do all the spread, the things for the farmer also. And also FTI, we are developing and using as a policy, we call SAI, Smart Agriculture Industry, which is we are building right now to do from the earlier stage until like come out as a product. Right now, we will have a model, very big one, we call SAI side. And after one, under FTI, the first one, we will have like all the energy thing, financial sector, energy sector, they have a lot of money. That's why they can do everything. And also the FTI, we ask money from them also to share to all the friends in the FTI. And what we are doing, okay, energy, we do like big one is a battery. And fast one is like manufacturing as an EV. We have a big EV that potentially change. You may heard a lot of the combustion car, everything is going down a lot. And it just happened also. And the growth of the EV is very high right now, but we are still concerned now in the big volume of the EV car and about in the near future, even the waste of the battery that we, how much and how we gonna handle with this. This one will be all the big company and the high potential for the technology so far. Now we talking what is FTI doing. Every time I see the chart, I is also confused because it's a lot. Actually, sorry about that. Let me keep talking. We have like I told you, 47 groups under, and the new group. Let's say we have a group. We produce drone, and the technology for aircraft. This is a new technology that we have, and we have the cluster. 11 clusters. Also, we have S-curve, a lot of curve under, but actually, I don't know what is it, and too many already. We are working in Dubai in the policy is called one FTI. People we working together as a one. That's one you will see every time with our chairman, we use the one. Yeah. But still, we still have too many. Yeah. Let me go to a little bit on the, we're doing the one FTI, we try to use the industry collaboration to make together as to build the stronger for the industry in Thailand. And also we're doing like first gen, next gen, we're talking about smart SME. We also have an institute working with the government to help the SME to boost them up from SME to the larger enterprise in the near future, which is very hard. And we are still trying to make them grow up because you guys will see that the manufacturing as of now in Thailand, we are facing a lot of challenge from the competitors from the around the country, from the Asia. And that's why we come back to make a product, and we try to let them change the mindset, even the train the skill of the person. We have a lower skill a lot. And the Thailand, I will tell the World Bank also that Thai people, start more lazy to do all the manufacturing. We love social. We love to online. Now there's a people like Mr. Wei Tang said, they all go online. After they graduate, they go online. Nobody, less number, they go work for all the companies. Like outside the Bangkok is less. We lack of the IT and OT also. That's what happened. And we also try to move them as a first industry that I talk. We are also try to change them from OEM to OBM and ODM. What is that? Is a design or branding. If we can build that one, so will be some survival for industry in Thailand that we are intend to let them move up from the OEM, because you may see that Thailand will affect from a lot of platforms, social right now, which is we start from you may shop like Kun Wei Tang said, like Shopee, Lazada, and at the last we have a big impact one from China is Temu, which is come to replace all our product, which is we still keep producing without any understand cost, how much could it be, and even no platform to help them up. So we keep producing because they believe that if we produce more, we get more money. But even more, we lost more money on that at this moment. So another complicated thing, like I said, after OBM, ODM, we have also next gen industry. We have like all the S-curve that we are doing, and we are pushing whatever the climate change, the thing we have institute, we're talking about net zero because of the FTI content of the members a lot, which is be the one who release the carbon CO2 into the world. So into our Thailand also, which is we are working in the carbon credit platform with the Ministry of Environmental and how to trade the carbon credit and talking with European and US or Singapore. So that's what we are working, and we will contain like SAI side that I mentioned, and we are doing the biocircular economy also. We have a lot of things. We have people that donate. We are the free organization, no money, but that's why we have to come from my job to work for FTI a lot also. That's why we are the group of the private sector who help and, you know, talking with the DE, which is we get the money from DE quite a lot also. And we also looking forward for money from World Bank also to support Thai industry. Okay. This one, last one is about like what we are trying to change. Industry 4.0, AI and robot. We're doing a lot right now. We just had the event about AI. A lot of people coming from industry because all believe that AI will change the world. I said, not yet. You have to change yourself first before AI, because you don't know anything. You just know about AI. Can do everything for you. I said, slowly, please. And next is skilled labor, which we have to train them up. Nobody trained. They are training in the social, but not in the high skill labor by using the Line or Facebook more than, you know, train them up as a skilled people to work. And we have a risk thing as a supply chain security. Cyber security is a number issue that is not happened yet, but it will happen sometime, someday. But the attack on the cyber security in the manufacturing is happened a lot so far. On the sustainability, so the renewable energy that we are looking, the climate change that I'm talking, ESG is a number that we are very concerned because it's from the hot world, and right now we need to fix, and we use the ESG and BCG to help all the Thailand and, you know, make our manufacturing to comply to the world. And the first of all, the last one that also trying to put them in the new word coming a lot. Like at this moment, we have a PDPA, the Personal Data Protection Act, which is the one that is not related to manufacturing at all. But if we don't do, we cannot talk to Europe. We cannot talk to Singapore. A lot of things is coming to the new world as a big data, as a AI, IoT. We try to concern a lot right now, but come back to the last one as a Thai industry. They want to survive right now, and they not intend to be like tomorrow will be the date for closing the factory, because it's a lot of a challenge right now for Thai industry to compete into the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those insights. Wow, listening to Kun Paranon, I can feel the heavy weight on his shoulders from the Federation of Thai Industries. But now I really like you to hear from our fourth speaker, who is from the services sector. That's Kun Pongsit. He is doing a business on mobility, and it's called MoveMe. Kun Pongsit, can you tell us a bit more about what MoveMe is?
Okay, so thank you very much for TDI to invite us. I mean, like invite MoveMe on the stage. It's quite like so excited to compare with like the rest of the panelists. And one of the things before I move into my business, I would like to say that we are not part of FTI yet. Someday we will join, but for sure we don't have the money yet, so that's why. We hope so. Someone sponsor us. We'll join soon. But when I look into the presentation of FTI, I try to bring it up. Yeah, I haven't prepared any presentation, so sorry about that. But I would like to follow it up regarding to FTI. Right now, MoveMe, it seems we are on the business of the Thailand I'm not sure, between 3.0, 4.0 or 5.0 now. Maybe let the panels help me as well to decide. I will talk about MoveMe first. MoveMe is the application. You can search it now, I think, from anywhere. Oh, you already know. Thank you very much.
Using it with customers.
Yeah, we have the blue one that called MoveMe. Actually, the MoveMe is just like from the wording that we would like to move. Like MoveMe is like move I, like to go anywhere, so that I want. So that's why the wordings of the MoveMe starting from the on demands or the requested of the people who want to go anywhere that you want. But when we look around of the mobility, we don't need to be only the mobility that the others be, but we will look into the micro mobility. Because in Thailand and Southeast Asia, we know that the problem is not about how to connect to the others, but we don't know when we like go in front of the hotels or in front of our house, we don't know how to go to the mass transportation right now. Everyone just like walk, but the waiter is not proper for walk in Bangkok and in Southeast Asia for sure.
It's the last mile transport.
So that's why we're trying to look for the last mile, not only like from, I would say the last mile is another wording because I would say we would like to start since you like wake up and then you think about go to mass transportation, you have to think about MoveMe. That is the one. That's why when we look into the BestNet, we're trying to start from the 3 elements, starting from the first 2 elements of the affordable together with the convenience. If you look into the walkings or motorbike, you know motorbike in Thailand a lot, right? That is very convenient, but it's not safe. And if you look into the bus, it's very affordable because it's very cheap, but it's fixed route and very far. And we cannot predictable what is that, where is that from, when is that going to be arrived. So that's why when we look into that 2 dimensions, we come into, we also affordable and we also on your request as well, like on demand ride sharing. That's why when we look into that, we cannot go by the traditional way, like going to the tuk-tuk or like some law that we call in Thailand or like motorbike, but we have to go beyond. So we bring technology into BestNet. So actually MoveMe right now is the application that everyone know about AI ride sharing. That's why we have to pull the people to get the price of the transportation cheaper, affordable, and also still convenient for you to choose where you would like to go. And the last thing I consider, as Dr. Girida said, about the last mile, because we would like to go with another dimension about connecting the dots. We are saying MoveMe is not like compete with the other business. We are not compete with walking. We are not compete with a motorbike, but we are compete with ourselves because we would like to develop our service to meet the requirement of the customers. And actually we're trying to connecting the dot from like BTS, MRT or mass transportation to your last mile. That is the key.
This is very interesting because it's ride sharing, which makes it very affordable even for low income, right, individuals, right? Unlike the motorcycle taxi or Grab, where you're the only rider there. And I understand also from talking to you that you actually manufacture your own vehicles, right? Because you want them to be safe and up to the standards. Can you tell us more about that as well?
Yeah, it's a very good question because when I try to explain it, it seems like we know the users know us only the application, the blue one that you know. But actually behind the scene, when we look into the service that we would like to serve, the AI ride sharing, we're thinking if we use the traditional like tuk-tuk, we can sit like 2 or 3. And how's about the price to be affordable for the people in Bangkok? So that's why we starting from the beginning, we'll build our own asset. That's why we build our own fleet. Our tuk-tuk, when you look into in front of the tuk-tuk, our EV, actually this EV tuk-tuk, it seems normal like traditional tuk-tuk. But for the passenger seat, we can accommodate up to 6 people and the lower platform, like to help them to be better when we get on the car and also can affordable for the ride sharing as well.
Right, very appropriate for the aging society here. It has to be lower platform. You have to climb into the tall tuk-tuks. So my final question for you, Ms. Pongsit, is, so with these evolving technologies that you're seeing, and then you're in this field, so you probably have studied this much more than I have. How do you see it, affecting, or will it change your business going forward?
Actually, our business is micro mobility. Micro mobility just like the wording that talk in the TED Talk like 8 years ago. This is quite new. Actually, Thai people don't know about micromobility. They use every day, but they don't know it. This is what does that mean? From me, when I got this question from you, like last week, I tried to think about it. I tried to think about three things. First thing that I can know. Right now, we have a lot of data that we collect around 7 years already. For me, our company trying to look into the AI and machine learning a lot, not only for the user itself, but we're trying to control the driver by also the machine learning, like trying to look into their behavior. So the first point of view, I would say the technology cannot disrupt us directly because we're still updating every day by using the data turn into the technology to control everything, not only the users, including the drivers, and also the pricings. The second thing that I think is not like the disrupting as well from the technology, but in the future, possibly to support MoveMe about autonomous drivers. Right now, we're trying to look into it. We know that tuk-tuk is like quite hard to drive comparing with the like normal like 4-wheel drive, but actually in some day, we're thinking about how to control it by like not the people anymore. That is another things that possibly disrupt us, but it should be impact into our labor as well. And the last one, right now we're trying to adopt our micromobility to matching with the new working model that after COVID we will face with a lot with like work from home or the work from anywhere. So right now we're trying to cover like more service in Bangkok, and not only like from only the peak hour, but it should be cover the off peak to be serving the people that not only working for the office building, but it should be working anywhere as well. That is why I think to conclude on this, we think our business not only like it should be Thailand 5.0, I think.
And you should apply to the FDIC.
Oh.
Prepare application.
Okay, so that's why I think regarding to us, we have our core value to win through technology. So that's why we don't need to afraid with the technology, but we will adapt the technology to our business so soon.
Technology will enhance your business. So this is such a good example of using technology and services and using it, to enhance the service business here. So thank you so much. I think I'm so sorry that we're a bit, over time, but I think this is so interesting. If you have any questions, we can maybe have another 7 to 8 minutes, and we'll end at 4:30. Any questions that you would like to pose to any of our panelists? Please, Alessandro, please.
So first of all, thank you to everyone for a fantastic. I wish we had a much shorter first session, a much longer second one. My question is specifically for Dr. Huang Su for the ministry, and since you mentioned Singapore, you really made me think about the Lee Kuan Yew biography and from third country towards the first, and there you can see in the early Singapore really a relentless emphasis on two aspects, I would say. One is to learn from everyone and everything, right? So this big idea, we need to have foreigners teaching us stuff because we need to learn. And so there is a case in which the Vietnamese go to him and say, we want to privatize the SOEs. And he says, yeah, but do not sell it to local groups because you need the management skills that will come only from foreigners. And the second is a relentless attention on education. Right? The idea that the two most important categories are the engineers and the teachers. And that the teachers need to be paid as much as the engineers because the best and the brightest are the one that needs to build the future of the nation. So I don't know much about the local context, but I was wondering whether you could comment on these two aspects and how you see it in the local context of the Thai economy.
So the question, I guess, is how do you view about opening up to international knowledge,
and
right?
the role of teachers?
And the role of teachers.
Well, first of all, I mentioned Singapore a lot because I was from Ministry of Finance and have done a lot of rules and regulations and laws. And we mode everything before we draft any bills. We have to look at Singapore. They have taxed any tax at all. We look at them. Even how to promote foreign investors. We look at them. So that's why I mentioned so many times. But for the questions about education, I'm sure that anybody here would agree that education is the fundamental and maybe possibly the most important one. But the solutions, which direction of the educations, I don't think we can agree. But for what is I can say for certain is the points of views from my ministry. Because we have to do dealing with like coding, AI technology, many people would look to us. I would say that we would make the direction would come from the private sectors, because we know that even in my ministry, when the vendor come to us and they're looking for jobs on supporters, they would not look for degrees. They're looking for Microsoft certificate, Google Cloud certificate. Actually, degree has no meaning for even the vendors that working with us. We are so aware of this. It's private-led in the new world, the technology world. It's not about a formal degree, almost not a formal degree at all. We know that some kids, they're even teenagers, they can warp. They can create some amazing applications. They can create some interesting solutions. We are so surprised. So first I agree with you that Singapore is so great nation, good people, great people, so many lessons we can learn. I myself learn a lot. Before I do anything, I would look at them. So I show on my slides a lot about Singapore, because they are my benchmark, our benchmark. Second, it's really hard to answer you about the education. What is the best one? We look at Scandinavian, we look at PISA. We are among the lowest in the world right now. I don't know how come. And it's lower this year. If you look at the number, you know PISA, right? Thailand is lower. Even though put a lot of effort, try to boost it up, it's lower. So I can say for certain that I know in my world, private companies, the big tech companies, they have play so much big roles. If you have education from them, certificate from them, you can easily get a good job and well funded, well salary. Yes, no answer.
Thank you. Okay, 2 more questions. Or 3 more questions. Okay, please go ahead.
Okay, I'll keep it short. Thank you very much, great panel. My name is Agus Islamay. I'm also from the World Bank. But my first time in Thailand, I come from Washington, D.C. I had a question for I don't remember your name, but the private sector guy.
Me, the last
gentleman guy. Excellent idea. You talked about the safety, and I was lucky to experience the tuk-tuks, not very safe. So in terms of safety, can you tell us a little more, like what do you do? Maybe I don't seat belts and the battery, does it impose a limit on the speed? First thing. And second, is also great that, all of these are electric cars, but there's a lot of talk in the US about the lack of charging stations. So each administration is working fast to implement charging stations. How have you solved the problem about charging in the cars? And do you think the government has done enough or should do more in that regard?
Actually, thank you for the question, because I prepared that kinds of the things to talking about it as well. First thing, the safety, we have 2 things. One thing for sure, we have a seat belt that we design because we design our seat properly for 6 people. That's why we also design with the seat belt that is quite normal. Not only that kind of the effort regarding to the design in the application, we also promoting and training our drivers to talk in Thai word that you have to fasten your seatbelt before we go on. That is not required, but just recommend everyone to say. That is one thing. The second thing, our technology, not only including the design of the tuk-tuk, but also including the VCU. The VCU is kind of the vehicle monitoring. So that's why we also tracking the speed. We also cannot let them do the driving faster than we thought. When we get on the MoveMe, I think you have the experience on the MoveMe, right? Have you heard about the sound like tit, tit, tit? That is like the sound that also warning to the customer that actually already, beyond the speed that we set it up. And the next question is about chargers. Actually, more than the technology of the fleet, we also develop ourselves regarding to the solar charging and set them up in each area that we have. We don't have any much problem because we operate as the area. We don't operate like across the Bangkok. We focus like area by the area. So when we go into the actually TDRI don't have the stop yet. TDRI is part of the Ratchada Ramanai area that actually we operate around Thai cultural centers and also Central Ramanai. We are about to expand to here. Actually, around here we have the mega hub that actually like brings our tuk-tuk the place there and we charge there. Another thing regarding to that, the charger is not important because we develop ourselves. We can do the fast charge for our EV tuk-tuk like within 15 minutes, and the tuk-tuk can drive within 3 hours. So that is very good enough for us to serve like the peak hour. But more things, we develop our AI not only for the users, but the AI to control the driver together with the charging system as well. In Thai, we call Kuman. Kuman is mean like the goat children that we in our Thai belief. The Kuman will be order you like when the battery like lowing down, the Kuman will order you that you have to go back to your charging station right now, because we calculate already that is the next hours you have to charging like with the full batteries, and you can serve like during the peak hour. So that's why I would say we don't develop only the fleet, but we also develop the system to be behind on that.
So I think in the interest of time, thank you so much. We have two last questions. One from Dr. Salinla, and one from Dr. Aripon.
My first question is to the Ministry of Industry again. So in your slide, you mentioned the big investment from the big tech companies like Azure and also AWS in Asia Pacific region and also in our countries. And also they are holding the big share in this region already. So in your view, how do you see we can leverage this investment to support our digital economy? And very quickly, my second question to Mr.
Paranon from the Federation of Thai Industry.
So how do your organization plan to support the Thai industries in adopting advanced technology like the IoT and the sensor and automation? Thank you.
So while you think of your answers, may I invite Dr. Aripon to ask the last question, please, and then we'll answer them collectively.
First of all, I'm the big fan of MoveMe. I use a lot when I work in my previous company. So it's really safe, cheap, affordable. Everything is perfect for MoveMe. I can be the presenter next time. My question is regarding about the I'm quite shocked about 30% of the GDP. That is the target, right? That we would like to become a part of the digital economy. But when I saw the slide from the federal FTI, is that agriculture is really slow in adaptation of the digital economy, and the agriculture is the backbone of Thai economy. So with this big contradiction, what should be the top priority of the government policy to drive this to be happen in the 30% or almost near the 30%? So that is my question.
I'll invite the Deputy Permanent Secretary to speak first.
Regarding the questions, how we leverage the big investment from foreigners. When they have a huge investment, basically, first of all, they have to build or create a data center. The data center has a big investment, like the area. They would take a lot of land area. That's why I believe that we can beat Singapore. They cannot provide enough land area. The second one is the electricity bills and even the water. And you may have heard about the Google try to build nuclear power plant so that they can have a low cost and clean energy to supply their AI power, basically through the cloud and computing power. So in that sense, they have to build, when they build the data center, and they have to provide a lot of investment. And the second one, when they come in, like the AWS or the Azure, they will try to promote AI because it's their services. It's similar to many platforms. When they try to promote AI, it doesn't mean that just users. They will ask for developers, which they are already creating the forums with the Thai developers. I skipped the one PowerPoint to show the number of the developers in Thailand. Of course, we have some numbers, but we would like and love to see more. As we have right now, we have the nomad free visa and try to promote the high-tech nomad. Basically, if you have degrees, even students in prestigious top university in the world, you can come into Thailand with a free visa right now and have a long-term visa with very small hurdles. This is for one example. So how to leverage it? Basically, I'm about to say is that first, they not only come for Thailand, they come for the region. When they're coming for the regions, normally they would come with a training center, promotion, the headquarters, many things are coming all together. So I would say that it's many opportunities for Thai people. And normally when they come to Thailand, they would not use their too many Americans, because the cost to hire Americans in Thailand is a lot higher than comparing even the Vietnamese, the smart Indians, even some Chinese coming. And don't forget that it's not only American firms, even the top crowd companies in China is moving to Thailand also. I just forgot the second question that you asked maybe for the
Ripon.
But that one is quite difficult and quite challenging. We all know that agriculture is the backbone for the Thai countries for so long. But the number 8 to 9% is shrinking. Before it's 13%. Right now it's 8 to 9%.
The share in GDP.
Yes, the shares to the GDP. And we all know that in economic sense, easier to say it, right? You just move them out.
Move people out.
Move people out, upskill, reskill them using drones, using technology. But the more technology you use, the fewer people in the industries. So economics is easier, but for another reasons like how to balance between efficiency and people in the old traditional ways. It's I think I leave it to my master to answer because it's policies. For my opinion, I cannot answer. I have no ideas to do right now. I have been thinking about that for so long. As a trained economist, I always think that just move people out, which is not the.
So agriculture sector, as you mentioned, we find that it's quite a bottleneck for Thai economy for structural transformation from agriculture to non-agriculture, as he mentioned. One way is to move people, but it's quite takes some time to do that. Another way is to increase in terms of value added of agriculture sector, and the things that has been implemented would be through the smart farming kind of things that has been trying to encourage and help assist the farmers to adopt those technological advancement. And recently, I just mentioned that we have the annual seminar on productivity in agriculture sector. We also mentioning in terms of the agricultural service provider, that would be the alternative way to help farmers. Just not just individually, but as a group, to do those service provider to help enhancing in terms of agricultural productivity. But we, from our study, we learned that there has been some of the limitations in terms of the, source of fund, and also in terms of access to knowledge. That is the things that, we encourage the government to enhance more.
The implementation is up. So finally, Paranon, your quick answer to.
Okay, quick answer. What is FTI doing? It will be some strange that we have a group is called digital group, which is a group doesn't have factory at all, but all the rest is about 46 is all factories. So we are established this one, and also I'm looking after the Institute of ICT, which is we doing the digital transformation to all the manufacturing in Thailand also. And that's what we are trying. And what I'm doing is all the committee. So we have a committee in the institute. I ask everybody, such as Huawei, Microsoft, and also I think half of digital Ministry of DE is under my committee also. which is to bring the technology and the knowledge to all manufacturing company also to change them. And that's why we are looking and using the ChatGPT or Copilot to train them Microsoft. And we have a workshop all around the country, which is we have 76 provinces, which is that we also have the group in each province also. So that's why we are going and train them and let them learn more and try to do the workshop and let them understand how to use the technology to transfer and move all the things from the paper or from the manual to the digital, which is we have to go in that way already in terms of the competitors around the world, that we need to change ourselves and train all the people. This is our mission. And by the way, in the institute that we have is only have working people, only 6 people. And we have to do 16,000 members also and drive them into the Industry 4.0, which is we doing for a long time already and we keep doing. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. So let's give all a big applause again for all your insights and information. So this concludes our seminar for today. Let me thank all the panelists again, and also thank the World Bank team for coming all the way to TDRI here in Thailand today. Hopefully we will, have more of these sessions in the future. But for today, I just want to say goodbye to all of you here and also online. Thank you so much again.